Have you ever wanted to become a pirate? Then you're familiar with LimeWire. Freaked out about FBI waiting for your download? Like, hey, let's get this 8-year-old on max jail time. Internet grew from the free share of LimeWire to Napster. Internet grew into a Stranger Things monster. It helped you download things slowly and for free, plus possibility of giving you malware, numerous ads on your computer, like a creepy person down the street. But hey, that's worth the risk for InSync's bye bye bye. Just go to Planned Parenthood for those testy bugs. FBI would say, you wouldn't steal a baby from the womb, would you? The year is 2000, and I'm 11 years old. Aw, look at that baby. So I played Lego World on my father's off-white desktop. My brother brought home Doom on a beautiful, small little square called a floppy disk. I was like, what is this? Not from Blockbuster. Not from Hollywood Video. No artwork, just hardcore effing game. I found myself into finding a plethora of emulators. From Sega, to PlayStation, to Atari, to PC games, to Game Boy, to Virtual Boy. Sure, I didn't have 3D glasses, but the joy was 3D enough. In your tents, in your face, 3D, you could smell the red and black. It didn't give you a headache at all. Look at this visual. It's 3D at its finest. Virtuality nowadays has no comparison. Looking online for ROMs for certain games is like treasure hunting for that sweet, tasty game of nostalgic purposes. Most are from earliest games to early 2000s. Emulators are legal to download and use, however. Sharing copyrighted ROMs online is illegal. There is no legal precedent for ripping and downloading ROMs for games you own, through an argument could be made for fair use. An emulator is just a piece of software meant to emulate a game system, such as PSP, PlayStation, Atari, PC, KFC, McDonald's, you name it, they got it. Most don't contain any code. There's the N64 that doesn't work that fantastic, and then there's ones for the NES that are, excellent. It was just like I was sitting on the couch again when I was 8 years old eating Cheetos, having my little fingertips filled with cheese. But emulators aren't useful without game files or ROMs. And ROMs are almost always an unauthorized copy of a video game that are protected by copyright. An emulator is just a piece of software meant to emulate a game system, but most don't contain any code. But emulators aren't useful without game files or ROM. ROMs are almost always unauthorized copy of a video game that are protected by copyright law. According to all legal precedences, emulation is legal within the US. However, unauthorized distribution of copyright code remains illegal. According to both countries, specific copyright and international copyright law under the Berne Convention. In the US, copyright protected works for 75 years, meaning no major consoles title with the public domain for decades. Despite what you may have heard, there's a lot of question on whether emulators themselves are legal. Downloading a copy of a game you don't own is not legal. It is no different from downloading a movie or TV show that you don't own, such as like on Pirate or LimeWire. I remember downloading Batman the animated series on LimeWire. Coded Eminem / Destiny's Child -1 Bait Cape Crusader. That was a beautiful show. It wasn't pixelated at all, aka here it is. No pixelation whatsoever. Now let's assume I have an old Super Nintendo. I love Super Mario World, so I downloaded a ROM and played it. That's a violation of copyright. That's fairly clear cut, right? And it's more or less aligns with the language regarding ROMs on Nintendo's website, where the company argues that downloading any ROM, whether you own the game or not, is illegal, and you can be prosecuted by law. If you already own a Super Mario World cartridge, then you may be covered by fair use. Fair use is a fuzzy standard. Fuzzy, like fox. If you think of fuzzy, think of fox. That is fair use. Fair use is a fox. Fuzzy, fox. Fair use is a fuzzy standard, not a rule. There are a few possibility defensible scenarios. If I own a copy of Tetris, I can play it whenever I want. But what I'd like to do is play it on my phone or my laptop, my flip phone right here, or my Nokia hardcore brick. In this case, downloading a ROM could be legally defensible. You're not giving the game to anybody else, you're just playing the game. You're not giving the game to anybody else, you're just playing a game you already own on your phone. Argument would be there's no market harm, therefore you're not selling it. A common argument online is that extracting a ROM from a cartridge you own is perfectly legal, but downloading ROMs from the web is a crime, and you can go to jail, which is hardcore. After all, ripping a CD you own with iTunes or other software is broadly considered legal, at least in the US. Go America. In the words of courts, in both cases, what you're doing is creating an additional copy. Now, you could imagine constructing an argument about how one is different from the other, and he admits the optics are different. But he does not think the two different situations are all that distinct, legally speaking. This fair use argument is potentially very wide-reaching, but there are limits. The trouble comes when it no longer just means me having a copy. It's giving other people a copy as well. Once you're distributing a ROM, most of the people downloading it probably don't have legal copies of the game. Then it is market harm. Market harm. Even though they're selling billions and billions of copies of Zelda, it can hurt their financial gains. Because of this, it might be a good idea, even if you own a game, to avoid downloading ROMs from peer-to-peer network, where you're sharing a copy of the game as you're downloading it. ROMs are such a gray area. Look at this shade. That is a ROM of gray shade. Because there are potentially legal defenses on both sides. But no one truly tested these arguments before. In history, there isn't really any case law specifically about video game ROMs, and was most just exploiting from other areas of the internet copyright law. So I think you're in the clear for putting Nintendo, Super Nintendo, PC, Atari, all on your PSP. Why not? PSP is one of the easiest ones that you can put all these emulators on, and it is quite fun since you have the little joysticks. On my PSP, actually, I have over 1,000 video games, and maybe over 20 emulators, which is fantastic. Legalization of fair use. I do own these games, so no worries. If one thing is clear though, it is this. If you don't own a legal copy of a game, you don't have any right to download it. Even if you delete it after a 24-hour marathon of hardcore gaming, it's still illegal. Well, that's all I have today for emulators. What are your thoughts on emulators themselves? Do you have an emulation of a system? Do you think emulators should be brought back for PS4 or PS5 games? I'm not quite sure, and I'm not quite in the realm since I haven't been emulating games since I was like 10 years old. But please leave it on the comments down below, like, subscribe. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. Bye.